Alright, welcome back to the Nicolas Sequeira review. Now recently, a film reviewer going by the name of Nitpicks asked the incredibly, he asked the really interesting question, is Pixar dead? Now, what I'm going to try to prove over the course of this little video essay is my theory that Pixar has always been dead. Pixar has always billed itself as the studio of innovation, but they've never really been about the innovation of animation. All they've ever really been about is look at the expensive $500 computer animation machines, the millions of money we spend on to make our characters three-dimensional. And the way I see it, such a viewpoint is unhealthy. And Pixar has never been the independent, John Lasseter, warm, friendly types you see all the time on their documentaries. They have always been a subsidiary of Disney. From the very founding, they've just been a subsidiary of Disney. And originally, it was slated that Disney would do the two-dimensional animation, and Pixar would do the three-dimensional animation. However, now they both only do computer animation. Cells are a thing of the past. Now, you've got films like Tangled and Zootopia being from Disney, and things like Cars or Monsters, Inc. from Pixar. To really figure out what I think is wrong with Pixar, and to illustrate my point that it has always been dead, and Pixar has never produced one worthwhile piece of animation during its entire lifespan, we need to go back to the first piece of turd it chunked out. Toy Story is the one Pixar film which is watchable. It's not good by any means, but it's watchable. I've even got a bunch of bycatch from it, because who was the fad back in the day? Here's Woody. Now, the main problem with Toy Story, it has Tim Allen, and Tim Allen has always been in stupid things. He's never been funny. And, so I can imagine him being in something like this. But then you've got Tom Hanks. This is Tom Hanks. He was in Joe versus the Volcano, which is like one of the most funny movies ever. He's in The Burbs, which is also very funny. And he's in Forrest Gump, which is just great. Forrest Gump. He is Forrest Gump. And then he plays Cowboy Toy. Can you even imagine? Tom Hanks, you have better things to do with your career. You've got this sick little movie, Toy Story, and it's got Tom Hanks as a cowboy plaything. The problem is that this is Pixar's first film, and I can understand them 3D animating fish or monsters or what have you. But the problem is, you don't need to computer animate toys. They work well with stop motion. And in fact, not only is the entire plot stolen from Duffy the mascot, but in addition to that, just the insult that you couldn't stop motion these things. You could. It would look pretty cool to see the little bucket of soldiers and the Etch-a-Sketch and whatever in stop motion. That'd be neat. But of course, Pixar isn't willing to put in the effort for that. No, mind you. So they make this garbage film with Tom Hanks as Cowpoke and Buzz Lightyear as Spaceman, and it grosses $1 million, and it's disgusting. And I thought Tom Hanks had redeemed himself when he played his best character ever, David S. Pumpkins, on SNL. But boy was I proven wrong when Toy Story 4 came out just the past year. Oh boy, Pixar is into milking Toy Story for as long as they possibly can. Then we move on to A Bug's Life. I've never seen A Bug's Life. It's one of those movies that's so boring that you sometimes even just forget it exists. It's not as good as Ants with Woody Allen and Danny Glover, but I mean, Ants isn't that good. But at least it has Woody Allen, something which A Bug's Life doesn't have and never will have. Alright, then you've got Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is a stupid movie about fish. Because Pixar can't think of anything better to animate, you got to have fish. And Ellen DeGeneres is in it. And she's not that good. And also, it's about the fish who gets kidnapped. And then, oh, he's missing a fin. He doesn't have the fin. And then the starfish is like, I was bought on eBay. And what an awful movie. And I mean, not as forgettable as A Bug's Life, but just not good. So then you have Monsters, Inc. You know what's a better movie, like, by a factor of a million? Mad Monster Party. The movie that nobody even knows exists, even though it's got Boris Karloff in it.
Starring Boris Karloff.
Mad Monster Party is 1,000 times better than this garbage movie with the little green gumball man and John Goodman as Blue Bigfoot, because it's lazy and bad. And overall, 0 out of 10. Everyone says, oh, well, Randall the Little Purple Lizard is a great, well-written villain, and the problem is, he's actually not. Have you ever seen Vincent Price in anything? Because you must be really stupid if you think that stupid Purple Lizard is the best villain. Okay, then we've got WALL-E. And WALL-E I have a personal hatred for, because I remember in first grade, this lady came and she's like, have you seen the new cute movie about the cute little robot that cleans up the trash? And I saw it, and then I realized, oh my gosh, this is dark for a kid's movie. The world is dead. Everything is dead except for this one little robot. Why does he have the right to live on Earth, but all of humanity doesn't? And then at the end of the movie, the fat human, who doesn't look anything like a human, by the way, he says, what if we could plant pizza? As if that's some kind of joke. They don't even know how to grow their own food. It's a movie about a pathetic future that none of us ought to strive for. And WALL-E is one of the least charismatic main characters, not just in animation, but in really any genre. He's not a good robot. You know R2-D2 and C-3PO? They have personality and charm. And R2-D2 may make little beeping noises, sure, but it's implied that those little beeping noises mean something. All WALL-E can do is repeat his own name over and over and over again. WALL-E, WALL-E.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
And I don't care if he falls in love with the stupid female robot. Why is it a love story? Why? What's wrong with you, Pixar? And don't you understand that there will never be those massive piles of trash? Because we don't have that amount of oil to make plastics from, and that amount of trees to make cardboard from? Shouldn't you be addressing the problem of pollution in a more realistic way? So that our children will understand how global warming operates? Because for God's sake, Pixar, if you've really got to shove it down our throats like that, at least do it competently. And the trailer says, he wanted to watch the stars. Like it's like yeah, but it doesn't mention the fact that all of humanity is just fat and obese, and there's like 300 of them left, and they're just living on this desolate spaceship. What a depressing movie. Horrible science fiction. 0 out of 10. Then we've got Up. And everyone was like, oh wow, you acknowledge the existence of death in a kid's movie. And it's like, yes, children ought to know that people cease to exist at some point. Pixar isn't the first to do that, and they certainly should be credited as being revolutionary at some point. But I swear, whoever wrote this thing must have taken acid or something, because it's the most effed up storyline I've ever seen. Old man lives in a house, has a wife, the wife dies, then a fat kid comes along, and then they go to South America because his house has 20,000 balloons in it, and then they're talking canines, and it turns out, oh, the Charles Lindbergh or whoever is actually evil and tries to kill them, and then there's a bird. And I don't even remember this movie because that's just how weird and pathetic it is. It tries to be everything at once, and as a result it ends up being nothing. I felt nothing when watching this film, and I remember the first time I watched it, someone said, well, look, you want to be an artist when you grow up. This is the only thing that animation is these days, just old men with glasses. And all I could think is, really? I think I can animate whatever I want, and I don't need to animate stupid talking canines, okay? So then we've got what else? Oh my gosh, I can't even. Inside Out. That's the one. Everyone always is like, oh wow, Inside Out, and everyone says, well, you know, it rips off Osmosis Jones, and YMS, who I really respect. He has great taste in movies. Mentions, oh well, it's not really ripping off Osmosis Jones because it's much more like this shitty 90s sitcom called Herman's Head. And I actually looked at Herman's Head, and it actually looks way better than Inside Out. And yes, of course, Inside Out is ripping it off. And yet Inside Out, because it's backed by John Lasseter and the rich boys at Pixar, is able to convince everyone that it's some kind of groundbreaking new idea.
This is Herman Brooks. Herman is just like the rest of us. Every day he has to make all kinds of decisions. Now, these decisions should be easy, but if you take a look inside Herman's head, you'll see why he sometimes has trouble making up his mind.
And it acts as if it's the first film ever to talk about Freud or basic psychology. Why do 6-year-olds need to know about basic psychology? If they want to know about basic psychology, they can watch any movie that deals with basic psychology. They don't need to watch a simplification about stupid organs doing, or not organs. I mean, Pixar really does rip off Osmosis Jones with Inner Workings, but Inside Out is a predictable, lazy cash grab that revolutionizes nothing. And you'd think Pixar would be able to animate humans competently at this point. They don't. They still look like garbage. They look as much like garbage as Sid from Toy Story. Probably even worse. The great thing about Osmosis Jones is that it's really great at blending live action and animation. And it has Bill Murray and Chris Rock. And also, it doesn't computer animate Bill Murray because that would be stupid, because you've got Bill Murray. So the way in which this movie tries to make the inside of the brain look all cartoony, but tries to make the outside look real, except it can't because they're 3D animated human people and they look like something out of a nightmare. Yeah, 0 out of 10 stars, Pixar. Alright, then we've got The Incredibles, because Pixar, being the unimaginative dimbulbs they were, thought, well, we need the superhero. Oh, wait, we don't understand the genre of superhero. Let us make it Superhero Family. And it will be like a guy, he is fat. He is big fat superhero. And then he has 2 adorable children whom the audience of 7-year-olds can relates to. And even Samuel L. Jackson being in this can't save it. Nothing can save this. It's a crime. And what's the final one? What's the final one? Because Pixar's filmography is really very limited because they can only churn out one of these projects per year. And I'm not talking about the sequels here, of course, because they're all the same. What is it? Cars, right? Cars. Cars is the one that everyone says, oh, it is the point at which Pixar stopped being good. And all I can really say to that is, Pixar was never good. It's always been for babies. And if you mock Cars because it's about cars, but you love Nemo because it's about fish, get a hold of yourself. Because for gosh sakes, I mean, I'm not defending Cars. It is a lazy, horrible movie. But that's how I see all Pixar. Alright. So now that we've gone down a brief rundown of each of these awful movies, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some. I'm not talking about the dinosaur one because that's been done to death already. But there's never been a review which goes so far as to say that all Pixar movies are bad, because it's not like they're all made by the same insane rich people who just have wads of money to throw around at nothing. Now that we've gone over that, let's talk about the main problem of Pixar. The main problem of Pixar is that they are never brilliant in any capacity. They never go beyond sluggish, and they certainly aren't innovators. I would never call one of their movies art. I'd put it on at a kindergarten. I don't work at a kindergarten. The point being, their media is pandering, useless, and overall just distasteful. And I can certainly see how a company that stagnates the animation industry as much as Pixar has would lead to something like the Minions from rising up out of the ocean and grasping onto that last futile money. Let's get the money, let's get the cash, but that's how it is. Pixar has never been about innovation. For instance, have you ever thought about the title of Finding Nemo? Because I personally can't decide. I believe his name comes from Little Nemo in Slumberland by Winsor McCay, which I don't believe is one of the best comic strips out there. It's better than Garfield. I mean, anything is better than Garfield. But the point being, they stole the name. And if they didn't steal it from Little Nemo, perhaps they stole it from Captain Nemo out of Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is one of the best novels of any time. So, they can't even come up with their own names. And then they've got this stupid film, Toy Story, which was never good. Notice a common theme in all the Pixar movies, in that they all have children in them. because it is assumed that if a child watches something that does not have another child in it, they will not be able to identify with it. Well, I suppose WALL-E is an exception to that rule. The point being that Pixar has, well, I mean, I suppose Pixar is the modern age equivalent of Disney. They've done everything Disney did. They don't come up with their own ideas, really. They just take ideas that already exist, or they just take a basic object, a car, a fish, and they say, let's make an entire movie about this sucker. Let's milk it for everything it's worth. And Disney really did the same thing. This is how Disney worked. First, Disney invented Mickey Mouse, an original character. And he wasn't the best character or anything, but at least he was an original character. Then Walt Disney said, to heck with inventing my own characters, I'll just rip off the public domain and call it my own. So he went to Grimm's Fairy Tales and made Snow White, which was okay for the time. You know, back then the kind of animation was revolutionary, much less 2 hours of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs moseying around. But he didn't just stop there. He went with Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Peter Pan. He ripped off Lewis Carroll, and that really offends me, ripping off Lewis Carroll like that, because Lewis Carroll is a funny man. And the cartoon version seems so watered down and tame by comparison. Then by the 90s, after Disney had passed on, he said, well, I suppose Roy Disney or Wilt Eisner or whoever controlled the animation empire at this point, they said, well, looks like we've stolen all the Anglo-Saxon literature which we can. How about now we steal all the world cultures that exist? So they took Chinese culture, they made Mulan. They took African culture, they made The Lion King. They took Greek culture, which really gets my goat because Greek culture is far more interesting than it was portrayed in Hercules. And then they made Moana, and then they made so on and so forth, and they just won't stop until they've milked everything that they haven't come up with. They can milk, quite literally, any world culture they haven't taken advantage of yet. Same thing happened with Pocahontas. You can't put anything past them. They will rip off Native American culture. They will rip off anything they can get their grubby little money-hungry hands on. Pixar doesn't do that. Their strategy differs a bit. But they are exactly the same. They are two sides of the same coin, Disney and Pixar. And what needs to be done in animation is to do away with this sick little monopoly. It's gone on for long enough, and by gosh, has it gotten old. I'm sick of going to a theater, and the only cartoons that are ever on are for 7-year-olds, and the only aspect of them is, look at how expensive we can make the animation. Now let me tell you something. You don't need to spend a lot of money to animate something. You need a pen and paper, that's all you need. And, well, you might say, well, it's for ease. Using computer animation is easier than drawing 500 or 1,000 sheets. All I have to say is, have you ever looked at computer code? It's very tricky. Pi and Python and all that garbage. Why would anyone go to all the trouble of learning Pi and Python and all that garbage when you can literally draw anything on a piece of paper, speed the papers up, and give them the illusion of motion? I say there's certainly no real effect to it, and if Pixar really want to be taken as innovators of animation, they could show me that they can do more than one kind of animation. That they can do stop motion or claymation or any of those, but it appears that they certainly can't. So until they do that, I will always hold them as the killers of the animation industry and the destroyers of thousands of people. Because, as with Goosebumps, some things don't wear off past childhood. children are constantly told that this is art, and they will never look for anything higher. Alright, well, I believe I've been pessimistic long enough. So, if I don't suggest anything from Pixar, which is the biggest animation empire of the past decade, you might be saying, well, then what do you suggest I show my children? This is what I would generally suggest. You can show them Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's not the most well-written, but it is the only good classic Disney movie, as it is the only one that shows any real potential for innovation. You can show them Aladdin, which is the only good Disney movie from the Disney Renaissance, and that's only because it's got Robin Williams. You can show them any of the hundreds of classic Looney Tunes shorts out there, which are much better than anything Disney ever put out. Mickey Mouse is a very bland character, but Bugs Bunny is a well-written, snappy, interesting, complex, fun character, because he's an asshole, and that's what he's all about.
All right, Muggsy, let me have it. Come, you heard what the boss said. Let me have it.
Oh, okay, but,
That's better.
And not only that, but all the characters in classic Looney Tunes are very well written. From Sylvester to Wile E. Coyote, yes sirree. Put your faith in Looney Tunes. Far better than anything Disney ever made. What else do I suggest watching that's animated? Well, I suggest Wallace and Gromit 1 through 3. And not Wallace and Gromit 4 or the Wallace and Gromit movie, as they are rather derivative, but Wallace and Gromit 1 through 3 pretty much runs the gamut. You can show your kids Duffy the Mascot, which Toy Story shamelessly ripped off. Blame it on Jorge. Said, oh, well, Duffy the Mascot is too gruesome, and it is just influence, you know. But it's a ripoff, and Duffy the Mascot does it a lot better. You can show them. You can actually show them any of. You can show them Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare Before Christmas is competent, and it's a lot of fun. Or if you enjoy a little better as far as the spookiness goes, show Mad Monster Party. That one never gets enough attention, and I have no idea why, because it's amazing. You can show them Gumby the movie. I never hear Gumby the movie talked about as much as Stupid Cars, and think about all the work Art Clokey put into it. Gumby the movie is a triumph of animation. The writing isn't the best, the script isn't the best, but Gumby turns into a pancake, and he's cut up into 16 little Gumbies, and if that isn't innovation in animation, then I don't know what is. Finally, I wouldn't suggest showing your children this, but I'd recommend as you know, just as an example of the fact that animation is only a medium, and it doesn't have to be for any given age group. Watch Belladonna of Sadness. I saw what was billed as the first showing in America down at the Sea Film Center, which isn't too far from the house here, and it was very good. It was almost stellar. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that it is the single best animated film I've ever seen. And it was from Japan, what's more. Now, you know me. I don't like anime. I don't like Dragon Balls. I don't like Pokemons. I don't like Astro Boy. But when I saw Belladonna of Sadness, it was something else entirely. It's not your typical Japanese animated movie. It was really good. and the animation was stellar, experimental, so trippy. It's such a trippy flick. And as I understand, it's very rare. It's beaten into the dust by all the big money-making Pixar hungry slobs. But if you can find a copy of it, gosh, watch Belladonna's Sadness, because that's as good as I think an animated movie can possibly get. Because my gosh, was it? And that's how far animation can reach. It can get great. You just need to not constrain yourself by wanting a PG rating. Oh, one last movie I'd recommend. Shrek. You know, it's Shrek. And while it's not the most thought-provoking, it is the only computer animated film worth watching. And it's got Mike Myers and Eddie Murphy and Cameron Diaz. And it's a very charming movie. If you haven't seen it, or you want to relive the meme, then watch Shrek. Because my gosh, the Little Onion Swamp Guy is about as good as you can get as far as computer anime movies go. And it's from the era back when DreamWorks was giving Disney a whole load of cynicism. So those are the good animated movies. But Pixar has never been good, and I was never inspired by the little Tom Hanks nightmare puppet, and I never will be, because all Pixar movies are bad. Okay, this has been another very very fun review. So catch you on the next one.